Every morning, before the day has properly begun, you enter a negotiation with yourself. You say you will get up when the alarm rings. You will go for the walk. You will stop checking their profile. You will finally make the call. You will say no, this time, before resentment says it for you. For a few quiet seconds, you mean every word. Then the alarm sounds. Your hand reaches out. Snooze. The shoes remain by the door. The call moves to tomorrow. The message you promised not to send is already being typed. Nothing dramatic happens. No one else even notices. But somewhere inside you, a witness does. That witness is the part of your mind that keeps track of what your promises are worth. It does not judge you with words. It learns from repetition. When you say, "Tomorrow will be different," it compares the sentence with everything that happened yesterday. And the day before that. Eventually, your own intentions begin to sound like advertising from a company you no longer believe. Think about what happens when a friend repeatedly cancels at the last minute. At first, you accept the explanation. After the fifth time, you stop arranging your life around their promise. You may still care about them. You simply stop planning as though their word will become action. The relationship with yourself can change in exactly the same way. This is where self-trust is often misunderstood. We treat it like confidence. Like a feeling you should somehow produce before you act. But trust is not a mood. Trust is a prediction. You trust someone when their past behavior gives you reason to believe their next promise. And your brain applies the same rule to you. A promise is made. Discomfort appears. The promise becomes negotiable. You abandon it. Your mind updates its expectation. The next promise feels weaker before you have even begun. That is the self-trust loop. And once you see it, many things that looked unrelated begin to connect. Procrastination is not always about poor time management. Sometimes it is what happens when your mind no longer expects your plans to become real. Perfectionism is not always high standards. Sometimes it is the attempt to make one flawless decision because you no longer trust yourself to adjust along the way. People-pleasing is not always kindness. Sometimes it is what remains when other people's approval feels more reliable than your own inner signal. For some people, this pattern begins early. Perhaps your feelings were inconvenient. Perhaps saying no created tension. Perhaps being loved meant being easy, useful, calm, or impressive. So you learn to scan the room before checking yourself. You learned that safety came from adapting quickly. That skill may once have protected connection. But repeated for years, it can quietly teach you that your own needs are the least trustworthy voice in the room. You may have become exceptionally good at noticing a raised eyebrow, a change in tone, or the silence after you disappointed someone. Yet when your own body tightened, when tiredness became resentment, or when something inside you whispered, "I do not want this," you learned to move past it. And sometimes the problem is not that you do not know what you want. It is that different parts of you want different things. One part wants to leave the relationship. Another fears the empty apartment afterward. One part wants to speak honestly. Another remembers what honesty once cost. One part wants change. Another has confused familiar pain with safety. From the outside, this looks like sabotage. From the inside, it may be a protection system pulling in two directions. The conflict becomes exhausting because both sides use the same voice, yours. You make a decision at noon and reverse it by evening. Then you interpret the contradiction as weakness, when it may actually be two different survival strategies taking turns at the wheel. This is why shame rarely repairs self-trust. Shame says, "You failed again because there is something wrong with you." But when you attack yourself after every failure, you become even less safe to return to. You miss one day, then disappear for a month. You break one promise, then avoid making any honest promise at all. The original mistake becomes smaller than the punishment that follows it. When self-trust weakens, you begin outsourcing your life. You ask 5 people what you should do, then feel no clearer. You wait for a message before deciding how your day feels. You ignore your body until exhaustion makes the decision for you. The question is no longer, what do I know? It becomes, who will tell me that I am allowed? At this point, most people respond by making a bigger promise. A new routine. A complete reset. A different identity beginning Monday morning. For a moment, the size of the promise feels like proof of seriousness. But if your self-trust is already damaged, a huge promise is not inspiring. It is another high-risk loan from a bank that has stopped lending to you. The repair begins with a much smaller contract. Not the life you will transform. The promise you can keep today. Drink the glass of water. Walk for 5 minutes. Write 1 paragraph. Leave the conversation when you said you would. Put the phone in another room for 10 minutes. The action may look insignificant from the outside. But the point is not the action. The point is the evidence. Choose promises that are almost impossible to misunderstand. Not I will take better care of myself, but at 7, I will walk around the block once. Not I will respect my boundaries, but if the call becomes insulting, I will end it. Specific promises create specific evidence. Each kept promise becomes a small vote for a different relationship with yourself. Not, I am suddenly disciplined. But, when I say I will do something small, I increasingly follow through. Your mind does not need a speech. It needs a pattern. Trust grows when your behavior becomes boringly consistent enough that prediction can change. And when you fail, repair quickly. This may be the most important part. A trustworthy person is not someone who never disappoints you. It is someone who acknowledges what happened, returns, and changes the pattern. You can do the same with yourself. No dramatic punishment. No promise that you will never fail again. Just an honest return, I said I would. I did not. What made the promise unrealistic? What is the smallest repair I can make now? Repair also means refusing to turn one broken promise into a verdict about your identity. The goal is not to defend what happened. It is to learn from it without disappearing from yourself. Sometimes the repair is doing the action late. Sometimes it is reducing the promise. Sometimes it is admitting that the promise was made to impress an imaginary audience, not because it truly mattered. Over time, this changes more than your habits. A boundary becomes easier to keep because you believe you will protect it. A difficult choice becomes less terrifying because you trust yourself to respond if it goes badly. You no longer need certainty before moving. You need evidence that you will not abandon yourself inside uncertainty. Tomorrow morning, the alarm may ring again. You may still feel resistance. The old negotiation may begin. But this time, the promise does not need to be heroic. Sit up. Put your feet on the floor. Take one step toward the thing you said mattered. Not because one small action will transform your life overnight. Because one small action can begin changing what your own word means. Self-trust is not hidden somewhere inside you, waiting to be discovered. It is built in the space between what you say and what you repeatedly do. You do not rebuild it by demanding more from yourself. You rebuild it by becoming someone you can return to. One honest promise. One repair. One piece of evidence at a time.